The learning center, what I call Launch and Learn, would be hopping, like almost every day.
Okay.
Something would be going on in there. Our lab space would have things going on in there, whatever the needed. So all the space would be people out there, all interacting, things happening. We'll have a wall full of graduates at that point.
We believe that anyone, anywhere can make startups. After spending more than a decade building our own company, we've learned a ton. We've mentored founders and built startup communities. We've helped craft government policies, and we've also invested in businesses. Some that succeeded and some that didn't. We've helped thousands of startup founders, funders, and facilitators. We're inspired by their dreams and determination. Our goal is to travel across America and meet as many as we can, tell their story, and share their lessons. We're on a mission to help you succeed, to show you that you aren't crazy, you aren't alone, you really can do this. We're here to make startups together.
Yeah, I'm Steve Justice. That's Justice, for those, a couple of different ways of spelling justice. I am the director of Launch Fayette. I'm also the Chief Innovation Officer at the Ginn Group, which is a company here in Peachtree City. And the Ginn Group is giving my services to the partnership for Launch Fayette at a reduced rate to help promote the building of this incubator. I'm an aerospace engineer by degree and training. So I worked in the aerospace industry for 30 plus years, and I still consider myself part of the aerospace industry. I'm still working various jobs in that.
So I always like to start with just getting to know, and I know from working with you in the past, you have been in the game of helping entrepreneurship and innovation for a long time. But can you give us a little bit of the backstory about, what you've done in the past and how long you've been in this, and what brought you to doing this role here in Fayette?
We've always wanted to start our own company. So we went, yes, let's go start our own company. And as I tell folks, the first company I started, I learned all the things you should not do.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the standard.
Right, right.
I'm still learning them.
Yes, exactly. And I started a second company and did those things. And then, lo and behold, the state of Georgia called me and said, hey, we have a position. It's the director for the Center of Innovation for Aerospace.
Mm-hmm.
We know you're not available, and we know we can't afford you, but we thought we'd call anyway. And I said, well, wait a minute. This is interesting. Let's talk. And I looked at it and said, wow, now I get to affect the whole state.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the job as being the director of aerospace. Innovation.
Did you leave your startup?
Yep.
Okay.
Sold one of them off, closed the other one, so I wouldn't have a conflict of interest.
Okay.
And then went to work for the Department of Economic Development.
Yeah.
Focusing on the aerospace industry.
Yeah.
What year was this?
This was 2010.
Yeah.
2010.
Okay.
And that was an incredible move because my job was to help every aerospace company in the state grow by connecting them with resources throughout the state, be it at the state level, the federal level, other organizations, things like that. So I was working with companies everywhere throughout the state to help them, grow their companies. That's a part of economic development. Because I would tell people, if we can help these companies grow, then they're going to need bigger sites.
Yeah.
They'll need those incentives. So we move them into that traditional economic development. And it took a while to get the economic development community to kind of understand what we were doing.
Yeah.
Is that we had experts in aerospace that could talk that language and help these companies, and then we can do our standard economic development magic.
Right, right.
Yeah. What was the balance of companies in that role that were startups versus, existing or scale up? Like, where were they, generally speaking, in their process?
When I first came into it, the Center of Innovation for Aerospace, was really focused on startups.
Okay.
Almost exclusively. The first thing I did was a rebalanced portfolio. Because as I told people, I said, startups are great.
Yeah.
But a Lockheed Martin or a Delta can start a new program and then create 1,000 jobs like that.
Yeah.
So I can't ignore those companies. If my job is to grow the industry, I have to have a balanced portfolio. I have to have startups. I have to have small companies, mid-sized companies, and large.
Yeah.
I have to be looking across the board. The other part of it is if I'm working with companies across the board, when I went to the Deltas and the Gulfstream, the Lockheeds of the world, and I said, "Hi, I'm the state, and I'm here to help you." And they said, "Well, we really don't. We're Lockheed, we're Delta. We don't really need that much help." I said, "Do you have vendors in the state of Georgia?" "Yes." "Do they have all the skills that you wish they had?" "No." "Aim me at them." And then the light bulb went off. I could help the big companies by helping their supply chain.
Yeah. Yeah.
I could help the entrepreneurs because if I'm engaged on a daily basis with big companies, I can make those introductions because they want to sell to the big companies.
Right.
So the first thing I did was create that balanced portfolio to be able to look at the industry as a whole. When it was clear to me that we needed to not just help the companies, but help the communities.
Yeah.
Because I would, as part of economic development, because I was, looking with that part of the senior leadership team, I would go out to communities to speak and do all these things. And I'd go to a community and they would very proudly say, "Oh, we want to show you our new incubator." And I'd go, "Great." And they'd come and show me a building and I'd say, "Well, that's a really nice building. What are you going to do there?" "Oh, we're going to have offices there and desks there." And I said, "What programming are you going to have in there?" "Well, what do you mean?" And I went, No. You're building a co-working space. An incubator has programming, has services to help the people grow their companies. I said, that's programming first, building second. And they'd look at me and go, "Oh." And so it became clear that this was a vacuum, that this kind of information wasn't getting out to the community. So we started doing more in that area by going out to Augusta and other places and learning from the folks that are already doing it.
Yeah.
And trying to promote that at the community level. Because if we could build a innovation ecosystem in that community, well, then that helps the existing companies as well. Because you have the entrepreneurs in those existing companies can also take advantage of that and connect into it. So I retired from the state, and David Knuckles took over as executive director, and he's continuing that work. And I think it's accelerating. I stay in touch with them a lot. So they're going to be a part of Launch Fayette. That's fantastic, because I want to do that. So that was the nucleus of how Launch Fayette came out, because I saw this happening out there and knew, okay, this is something that we need to do here now.
Yeah, so I see someone who basically was working like at the pinnacle of doing this work in our state and, coordinating with multiple industries, multiple communities everywhere. And you finally retired. So why are you back in this?
I feel like we should be mentoring you now.
Well, my wife would say it's a character flaw. And she's probably right. It sounds corny, but this is the way I've told people in the county. I did this at the state. I would come visit here where I live or sleep every night. I'd say, "Hey, you should do these things." And didn't get any traction. I just felt the calling. I thought it was very important to take the things I learned and apply it where I live. I really wanted to do it where I live, where I grew up.
Yeah.
And so
it's not hokey.
It's just time to do it.
It's not hokey.
It's just time to do it. And like I said, it took a couple of years of talking to people and just kind of very quietly, "Hey, have you thought about this? Hey, what about this?" I wrote a white paper. I wrote, distributed to a few people so they could think about it. And then finally we found the right 2 or 3 people who got interested.
Yeah.
And that's all it takes.
So doing entrepreneurship programming in Fayette County, I'm working under the assumption that this is a pretty new approach for the county, that it hasn't done it as much. And so in trying to launch Fayette, what are the biggest challenges that you've faced and overcome so far, and what are the ones that are still in front of you that you're trying to find the solutions for?
Let me instead of starting with the challenges, I'm going to start with the happy surprises. So then I'll get to the challenges. There was already an undercurrent of this going on in the county. The Chamber of Commerce has a program called Startup Fayette. And I've a gentleman running that, Jason Bass here. So there were people who were very interested in that.
Okay.
And they had started moving, but hadn't really gained the traction that I think they wanted to. I think that'd be a fair statement. But they were working hard at it.
I think a lot of communities can identify with that.
Right.
Yeah.
We have another group called Mentor Rise, which was a group started by a local doctor. He saw the need for mentors for entrepreneurs. So he started a group and got about 15 to 20 people said, yes, I'll be a mentor from all different walks, different business areas. And this was just pre-pandemic, just right before everything
Imploded.
So those two programs started in that 2019-ish time frame. Of course, we had pandemic where nobody wants to socially interact with anybody else. And they were just trying to start getting their programs reestablished. And then this came along, Launch Fayette. So one of the first things I did was reached out, found this organization, reached out to them and said, hey, we want to work with you. We're not here to take over your programs.
Yeah.
We're here to collaborate and elevate your programs. I want to be a place where you can come and have your programming here because I want it to be a hub. If you know nothing about entrepreneurship in Fayette County 3-4 years from now, all you need to know is go to the Center of Innovation. That's it. That's all you need to know. Everything is here. You can connect with it. Maybe not every program's here, but at least you can make that connection to it. So Startup Fayette has come in. They're going to be part of our program. Mentor Rise, we have meetings with their mentors coming up. We're going to bring them into the fold. We're talking to the commercial co-working spaces, making sure they understand that we're not a competitor with them. We actually want to elevate what they're doing because not everybody will fit here. But we want to have folks that work in their spaces to be what I'm calling affiliate members. You won't live here, you won't have a hot desk here, but you can come and be part of the programming. The challenge is going to be reaching out across the county and making sure people know all this is happening. It's hey, we have this great thing. So the nice thing about the high school students, they're going to have to go home and tell their parents. That's a great marketing thing right there. But just getting it out across the county, saying, hey, there's this new opportunity. You don't have to drive to Atlanta to be an entrepreneur.
So I'm curious, when we talk about like our own experience in Augusta and the cadence of entrepreneur and space and programming. So then the next thing is capital, right? And so give us a little bit of wishful thinking or history on like what does it look like for an entrepreneur here to get access to capital, the angel market, the venture industry. What would an entrepreneur see here, and then maybe what they can look forward to?
There is a lot of investment already going on in this county. We have a very strong tie to the aviation industry, and that's one of our focus areas for that. We have advanced manufacturing. We have all the elements, and there's a lot of individuals with high net worth that live in Fayette County. It's just how do you harness that?
Right.
How do you harness that? So there's already some existing angel groups that we're going to tie into.
Okay.
But one of the ideas I've heard nationally is that the potential for starting regional venture capital groups that are focused on certain geographic areas. That's happened in other parts of the nation. I know Northwest Georgia was talking about it at one time, and I was encouraging them at the state level to go do that. I think there's some opportunity for that.
I think that's the thing that most people don't seem to understand is that programming at the core means people, and people means budgets and finance, and how do you make all these things happen? And you've told us that some of the great partnerships that have helped form this, but I'm guessing that ultimately you have a timeline in which this place has to resolve itself financially and sustain itself on its own. And so, sort of what does your runway look like, and what are the things that you think will either get you there or the questions that you need to answer?
Well, the good news is we have a good initial runway
Mm-hmm.
because we have funding for the first 18 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's better than a lot of folks when they start out. So we have budget for 18 months. We have a commitment for our space, rent-free.
Mm-hmm.
It's in kind.
Mm-hmm.
So the budget we have is predicated on in kind. So we have in kind of that. We have companies who are providing services in kind. We've had some donated equipment, all those things. So as we start maturing, I think you'll see the equipment cost part of that's going to start ramping down a bit. So more of the cash go toward programming, staffing, those sorts of things. I think as more people learn about what's going on, we have the opportunity to have more corporate support. And when I take corporate support, I always say, first we want your knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And then, by the way, then if you can contribute to us as well, that's great. But we never want just your money.
Mm-hmm.
We want your knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a person that's been successful in business, we want that first, right? Because that's what's going to really make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And the money is going to help us keep doing things. Let's go get more. But so my job over the first 18 months is to put together the plan to move toward self-sufficiency.
Well, I think it's great because that's going to afford you to probably play more of the catalyst versus the operator role in this community as you grow it. And it allows you to avoid some of those competitive forces that a lot of organizations face when they're first getting off the ground because they're just trying to figure out how they survive to tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be curious in the magic wand space, like what would 5 years look like from now?
Well, we would, since we have 4 launch pads,
Mm-hmm.
all 4 launch pads would be filled.
Okay.
The learning center, what I call Launch and Learn, would be hopping, like almost every day.
Okay.
Something would be going on in there. Our lab space would have things going on in there, whatever the needed. So all the space would be, we'd have people living here. There'd be just, people out there all interacting, things happening. We'll have a wall full of graduates at that point. And also a wall full of corporations that are involved with this at whatever level. So much space I'd have to probably expand the display at that point. I think the key thing is that we're known as the place to go if you want to know about innovation.
Okay.
Not just in Fayette County, but the whole south side of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Is that all you need to know is
here.
Launch Fayette at the Center of Innovation. If you know that, you're going to get what you need to grow your business.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. 5 years out, that's what to be that hub, for everybody to know that.
Yeah.
And it to be real.
Yeah, the thing that I'm really curious about, because you are in such a unique position, because you've done this, as an entrepreneur, as the director of a center, as a director of an entire state ecosystem where you're working with multiple communities, and now you're directly just building the one community center and growing out. And so what's the most, you think, helpful insight from that level of experience for people that are trying to grow this work, let's say at a local community level, that would help them?
If they're not you, but they want to be you when they grow up.
Well, I think a lot of it's what I'm doing right now.
Okay.
I'm reaching out, even though I've been involved at the state level, I'm reaching out to everybody that I can get my hands on, everybody that has a community incubator, and I'm bombarding them with questions. I'm sending out the questionnaires, and I call them up. I was talking to Tech Alpharetta last week, and just, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? Because every community has to develop their own flavor.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody can't be ATDC downtown.
Yeah.
Everybody can't be Tech Alpharetta. Everybody can't be the Curiosity Lab, the Beach Street Corners. That's the one thing I do know, is that each community is different, and the successful incubators have tailored themselves to the community. So you can't go in and just say, I'm going to look like these guys.
Yeah.
You have to develop your own recipe. I'm going to take a little bit from these, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Oh, they said that worked good. we'll put it together, and I have my recipe for my community. And I think if that's the one thing I've sold them on here, that we're going to develop the Fayette County recipe for this.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
What do you think?
Fayette County's, man, where do I want to start here? So, okay, what do I think about Launch Fayette? I think what's really interesting here is that a lot of times when we see somebody who's just starting out and building up their startup ecosystem, they're really just starting out. And in this case, Steve has a tremendous amount of experience having run programs at the state level. And I'm really curious to see how he will succeed, given that he has a network and a Rolodex that goes far beyond what I think a lot of communities have when they are first getting started.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, his lived experience is multiple decades of work. And so for him to reestablish this space where he lives, I think is really interesting. I think he will succeed because he does have those lived experiences. He does have that network. I think his enthusiasm for repurposing the space that he wants to open up the center is pretty impressive.
Yeah. I think the thing I'm really curious about is, obviously a lot of people when we first start building our startup communities, we don't have the same, maybe the network or experience that Steve has. But what do you think someone can learn from how Steve is approaching this when they're trying to gain support in their community?
Well, I think that again, lessons learned, right? So taking the long view, having an idea. I think he said it was like over 2 years ago, right? And so the Johnny Appleseed reference was that you sort of plant the seed, and then you sort of step back and you sort of see what happens, and then you plant another seed, and so you have to go through these seasons, and eventually that seed will take, and that seed that's planted is going to take off because other people see it. Other people want to contribute the water, the soil, the sun, whatever symbolism you want to use. And the next thing you know, it's taking off.
Yeah. What do you think the big advantage is that this community or this particular approach has?
Well, I think in particular, timing. I think there's timing. I think there's opportunity. I think the fact that, again, there's this pre-existing space. A lot of times we talk about talent, we talk about programming, and we talk about money. And so it's like a recipe. You need to kind of have a little bit of all three to really get it off the ground.
Yeah, I think I'm a bit excited that because of proximity, this is one where we might get to play a little bit closer role in maybe doing some direct help and maybe being able to observe how things develop along the way. I think they have a real advantage in trying to grow the capital stack in this community. Mm-hmm. I mean, one, it seems like they already have addressed a lot of the capital stack organizationally for Launch Fayette to begin. But I think that, the combination of the proximity to Atlanta and being able to leverage the investor network there, but also recognizing that this is a bedroom community with a lot of high net worth individuals that they can tap into, I think will allow them to get their investment capital started faster.
Yeah. And I think, as we talk to our peers across the country, what I really, really like about this is it's an example of what does it look like when you have a really big metropolitan city, whether it's Atlanta or San Francisco or New York or Boston or Detroit or Charlotte. And then you have to go to this outer ring, right? 30 miles away. This is a suburb community, and they want to have their own entrepreneurial ecosystem. So it's really indicative of obviously hundreds of cities that want to create another space because they don't want to commute, they don't want to travel, but they have the talent, they have the buildings and the resources. And so it really is, take notes, suburbias that are out there that say, like, you want to have this in your city, and you don't want to have to travel to the big city because you really do have all the resources here locally.
Yeah, I'm really going to be curious to see how this plays out over time. I think a lot of startup communities, they don't necessarily engage at the high school level in the way that they're talking about doing here. I think it opens up a tremendous opportunity to sort of begin building that entrepreneurial mindset really early on. I think it's one of the things that we talk a lot about is how much people in our country need to begin to think about entrepreneurship as a career path. in addition to all the different other, verticals around industry. My one, concern is just always making sure that when you're growing your organization, when you are engaging the youth, that you don't let it distract too much about what you're trying to do on the rest of the adult innovation side.
Well, I think that being said too, if you're going to quote grow your own, when you look at this population, 10 years is going to go like that. And so you think about a high schooler, whether they're college bound or whether they're technical school bound, if they have an entrepreneur idea and they want to stay in their city, this is going to be the place for them to come. They are not going to have to go 30 miles away. They're not going to have to go away. And I think that's sort of, again, those seeds that are being planted.
Well, and it's even thinking about, okay, let's say maybe what they're trying to do as a high schooler isn't going to work right now. They go off to college, they start their career, and they're ready to start a business.
Or a family.
Or a family. But maybe they start to think that coming back to where they grew up is the right place to be because they know that the resources do exist. And so I think therein lies the strength of beginning to approach this at the high school level in your community.
Yeah, and even for those entrepreneurs that are out of high school, if they're young adults or they're in their encore career and they want to come back here, this is going to be the place where they're going to find those mentors, they're going to get access to capital, they're going to find the space that they need, because those communities need to have those in-person real interactions for them to really grow.
Okay, well, I'm excited to see how they make startups here in Fayette County, Georgia over the next 5 years. Are you ready to go to Birmingham, Alabama?
We're headed to Birmingham, and the weather is nice today, so kudos to that.
So we can drive freely. So see you in Birmingham. Bye.
Bye.